Hi guys, Colesy, and today I want to talk to you guys about VR. Today we're going to talk about VR capable PCs. I have done some research into this and done a little bit of trial and error playing around on the Fizz PC website to design what I think will be a very good, very capable PC for gaming in general, and obviously anything else you want to do with it, whether you want to do video editing, work, etc. But keyly, is that a word? But mainly, the main design of this PC is so that it is able to run and play VR games on a VR headset well, and it's going to be a good experience in VR. The main thing with VR, having got VR myself and played a bunch of VR, you can check those videos out on my channel if you want. It's a super fun experience. It is very different to your standard gaming, but it is very fun. But there are some things with VR that are important. So it is more taxing on your PC than just running a game at 1080p and you're playing it on a screen. For starters, the VR headset, the way they work is you have two screens, one for each eye, and so the PC has to render both of those. Not only does it have to render basically the game twice, so it has to produce it twice, it has to do that at a high frame rate, but it also has to do that steadily. You don't want any stuttering, because when you're in VR, things like that normally you can put up with when playing a game really change the experience and can make you feel ill, and you definitely don't want that. That is not a fun experience. That's why I have designed this PC in the way I have, to hopefully be able to prevent some of that and be able to play these VR games smoothly and well. First thing to think of is there is a number of different headsets you can get for VR. So personally, I have an Oculus Rift CV1. This is my Oculus Rift. It is like the first commercial version. It's not the developer kit, obviously they came before. It's the first one that they actually sold once it fully released. I picked this up secondhand for a couple £100, I think. It wasn't that much, with, you know, sensors and controllers and everything. It's super fun. Even this being possibly one of the lowest performance VR headsets, it's still super fun, and it's a really cool experience to be in VR. Even from something like this, which is, you know, on the lower end of VR headsets that you can get for PC, all the way up to sort of like your Valve Index, which is, you know, £1,000 or whatever it is now. Obviously, that's a big scale you're getting there on VR headsets. So I had to make sure I looked up the minimum specs according to their own websites. So we've got some minimum specs for Oculus, we've got some minimum specs for the Valve Index, and we've got some minimum specs for the Vive as well. So obviously there's the Rift CV1, which is the one I have. There's the Rift S, which is a slightly updated version of that. You've got things like the Valve Index. Then with the HTC Vive, you've got the older standard Vive. Then you've got the Vive Pro. All of these do have different minimum specs, but they're generally roughly the same. So the idea is that the PC I've created is good for whatever VR headset you use, because all of these are similar in what they're saying. So a lot of the specs on the minimums, we're looking at GTX 1060s or RX 480s, it's saying as a minimum for the video card, and then CPU wise it's talking about a 4th gen i5 or a Ryzen 5 1500X, which is a 1st gen Ryzen. That's generally, we're seeing something around that. It's saying 8 gigs of RAM for the memory in the PC is the minimum on a lot of these. Strangely, the Vive only recommends 4 gig of RAM, which I find weird, because there's no way I'd build a PC with 4 gig of RAM. Your minimum, I would say, minimum has to be 8 in general anyway if you're going to game on it, let alone VR. I don't understand how 4 gig of RAM works, but it's telling me that is what the minimum is, so fine. That's the general minimum specs that the headsets are listing. Even though the headsets are listing those as minimum specs, obviously the games themselves will have their own minimum specs. So I try to look for what is the most detailed, best graphics, the most detailed. So I think that would be, I'm not super up to date, but I would say Half-Life Alyx would be a fairly good representation of the highest end VR game with the most detail and the most, you know, taxing on your system. Overwhelmingly positive on Steam. It lists its system requirements, its minimum system requirements. It doesn't actually have recommended, it just has minimum, so they're the ones we're going to have to go with. For CPU, it's an i5 7500 or a Ryzen 5 1600. Now here's an interesting one. In terms of memory, it's saying 12 gig. So immediately you're thinking when the Vive said 4 gig of RAM, that's just not going to work. So this says minimum 12 gig of RAM, and for graphics a 1060 or a RX 580, and it says 6 gig of VRAM. I think if we have this in our minds as the top end game that we're going to want to run, along with the minimum specs of the VR headsets, that gives us some way to work on a PC and a build to go with. I think that's the plan. So obviously VR can be expensive, and you know, if you're buying your Valve Index, then I imagine you're going to want to spend a fair amount on a PC if you don't already have one. But if, like me, you're on a bit of a budget and you want to get into VR on a budget, you might be picking up, you know, second-hand headset like I did for a couple hundred, and then you probably want to spend, you know, as little as possible but get a good, well-performing PC for your money. That's what I'm here for, and that's what Fierce PC is here for. So obviously I am a member of the Fierce PC stream team, and I do have a discount code, which we're definitely going to be using today to save us a bit more money, and you know, you guys should use that too. Code Colesy5, and you'll save yourself a bit of money on these PCs. And get them a little bit cheaper. So let's talk through the PC I've designed. Let's bring it up here. Right, okie dokie. So what I've done here is I've gone for the custom Ironwing AM4 based. So Fierce PC has a few PCs which are basically like stock, if you want to think of it like that. Like, it's like super low spec, and the idea is that they are just fully customizable, hence custom in the name. So you start from scratch and you design every part you put in, basically. It's gonna have like the standard parts or the lowest tier parts, and then you just upgrade what you want to upgrade and you make it your own, basically. I figured this was the easiest way because we're going for quite a specific spec, so that's what I've decided to do here. So let's talk you through what I have decided to go with. So, like we said, the minimum, it was talking about first gen i5s in terms of the CPU. We are going AMD with this one. We're not going to go Intel, because AMD tends to be a little bit more budget, and they are very good performing nowadays anyway, AMD CPUs. Initially, when you come onto the custom Ironwing, it'll put you at a Ryzen 3 3200G. It's a 3rd gen, which is good, because when we're looking at the minimum specs, it's talking like 1st gen. But personally, I think it's worth doing a little bit of upgrading and putting in a Ryzen 5 2600. It's more than the minimum spec that the headsets say they require. It's also a hex core rather than a quad core, so you get a little bit more in terms of your cores and your CPU. I definitely think that that's the way to go. Obviously, if you want to spend a little bit more money, you can go with something like the Ryzen 5 3600, a little bit better, a little bit newer. But I think the 2600 should be perfectly fine for VR, so that's what I decided to go with. In terms of cooling, I've left it stock, but for an extra £20, you can add like a pretty beefy Cooler Master CPU cooler, so that's up to you if you want to add that. I think we should be fine with the stock cooler though. With the idea of saving a bit of money and being on a budget, I've left the stock cooler as the option for CPU cooling. Right, down to graphics card. Now, VR is more taxing on your graphics card. The graphics card is the most important part of the PC over the CPU and RAM, etc. So this is something that we want to make sure that we get right. So I have decided to go a little bit higher than possibly necessary and a little bit more than maybe we needed to spend. The minimum specs from the headsets, a lot of them were saying RX 480 is the graphics card that's the minimum for the headset, but because we want to go a little bit higher than that, we could have gone with the RX 580 from AMD. I'm not super knowledgeable necessarily about AMD cards. I know it's a perfectly capable card, but having not actually played with one myself and used one really, then I didn't want to go with that. That would have saved us a little bit of money, but what I decided to go with is the GTX 1660 Super 6GB card. Like I said, it's a 6GB card, which is what Half-Life Alyx asked us for. It's also an NVIDIA card, which I am, experienced in using. I know that they are good quality, and it's a very, very good performing card, and I see no issues there. I see no reason why there should be an issue with that card playing VR. That is a very, very capable card, definitely higher than the minimum specs that the headsets are saying that they need. Next, RAM. Again, a lot of the headsets are saying 8GB, except the Vive that says 4GB. Still don't understand that. But Half-Life Alyx is saying 12GB minimum, so we definitely want to up it from the 8GB standard that we start with. So I have upped it to 16GB of Corsair Vengeance. Again, I think 8GB is the minimum you want to put in your PC anyway, really, if you're planning on gaming. But it's not that much more expensive to go to 16GB, so I would recommend 16GB if you can do it. If not, start with 8GB, try and get one slot free, so that in the future, when you've got a little bit of money, you can buy another 8 gig stick, put it in, you got your 16 gig. In terms of SSD, haven't put one on, up to you. Again, it's just for storage, so it's up to you really whether you want to go with any sort of M.2 or solid state drive in general, you know, a 2.5 inch. That's up to you. I've decided to keep the cost down. We're not going with any of those. We're just going to go with a simple 1 terabyte Seagate Barracuda hard drive. It's a terabyte, it's a decent amount of space. You should be able to store a bunch of games on that. No, it's not as fast as an SSD, but it does save us money, and in all reality, it's not that bad, it's fine. Yes, it'd be nice to have an SSD in there for like loading up Windows and stuff, and even if you had a big enough one to store games on, that would be nice too, but again, like I said, saving money, budget option, we're going with just the one hard drive. So with the motherboard, I think as a standard, as stock, it gave us the Asus Prime B450MK motherboard, which obviously is completely compatible because that's the reason FiercePC do it like this, so that you know that this whole thing is going to work together, everything is compatible with each other. That's the point of using a service like FiercePC, you know that it's going to work straight out of the box. But we could save a little bit of money by going with the Asus Prime A320MK motherboard. Now, I'm not entirely sure, without like looking into it really, you know, doing some research into the specifics of the motherboard. I don't know why the other one is better and therefore more expensive, but what I do know is FiercePC are telling me these are all compatible. They will make sure that these are all compatible when they build it. So I'm just going to save a bit of money and go with the cheaper motherboard, because as long as, you know, my CPU fits, the graphics card fits, my RAM all fits, I'm all good. I don't really need much more from the motherboard than that. So we've saved a bit of money by going with that one. Power supply, I have left it as standard. Yeah, we could save like £6 by going with the Cooler Master 500 watt, but 600 watt just seems, it's got that little bit of edge on it and it seems a bit more future proof. It's an AeroCool, so again, it's still a well-known brand. In terms of internet, I would probably recommend that you Ethernet this if possible, but if you want to add a networking card here, but it comes with the USB one, so you should be able to connect to the internet, you know, Wi-Fi, but like I said, I'd recommend Ethernet just because it gives you a bit more stability and a bit more speed in general than Wi-Fi will. But if that's not possible, or you're going to have to run like a stupidly long cable like I had to do in my house, and you don't want to do that, then fair enough. The USB that comes with the standard should be fine. Here's another big thing that I like to mention when I'm recommending PCs. Operating system wise, it will put Windows 10 Home 64-bit as your stock thing. It will load up with that. That's what it comes on as standard. But we can save ourselves a bunch of money by installing our own operating system. Now, I'm not sure, I think FiercePC, what they do is they will load on Windows 10 trial. So you have the trial edition of Windows 10, they'll load that on there for you, which saves you from having to pay for the, you know, the £89 for the full version. And really with the trial version, you don't actually lose anything. All it says is there's a little thing in the bottom corner that says like it's a trial, but that doesn't bother you, and I'm pretty sure like you can't change the wallpaper or something. It's just black, which again, not really a problem when you're saving like £90. Personally, I would take off that £90 to save a bunch of money. Up to you. If you have no idea what you're doing with any of this stuff and you just want to, you know, make sure that it has everything, then fine, that's up to you. You don't really need to activate Windows. If you're running the trial version, you'll be able to run your games, you'll be able to do everything you normally do pretty much, other than like some tiny personalization things to like your desktop, which isn't really that necessary. With a FiercePC, you always get the 3-year Protect warranty. With any PC, you can upgrade that to 4 years or the 5 years if you wanted, but 3 years is still a nice warranty to have. If you're into building your PC yourself, I completely understand it. Building PCs is fun, but when you do it through FiercePC, you're getting that warranty and that protection with it, so that if there is any issues, which hopefully there will never be because FiercePC are quality builders, but if you are having any issues, then you've got that warranty there to cover you, and FiercePC will handle fixing it. So the total price for this PC that I have built perfectly for VR gaming is £562. So here we are in the basket. This is the PC that we've built, £562 unit price, subtotal 562. It'll list all the specs that we've put in, so this is another time for you to just double check that you've got everything right. But if it's coming to 562, then you've probably nailed it and got everything right if you're trying to build this exact system. Then if we come down here, discount codes. Obviously you want to put Colesy 5 in there, that's the code you want to use. Apply that coupon, and then if we scroll back down to the bottom, you'll see here that the subtotal is 562. Discount using Colesy 5 puts it at £533.90. Now in all reality, That's a goddamn good price considering you're going to be able to run VR on this thing. Not only are you going to be able to run VR like comfortably on this thing, you're going to be able to play like top tier VR games like Half-Life Alyx. But of course, it's a PC that is capable of gaming normally on a screen with a keyboard, as well as, you know, doing whatever you want to do, whether you want to do work on it, schoolwork, a little bit of video editing, photo editing. It's capable of doing these things because it's a PC. That's what they do. They do a bunch of things. I think that this is going to be a great budget option. I think it's a great budget option PC anyway. Like, in all reality, I kind of want this just because I want one anyway. But I totally think that this is a very nice, capable, better than minimum spec VR PC. Now, what I would really like to do in an ideal world is I'd like to get myself this exact machine that I'm recommending to you guys. I'd like to get it, plug it in, and show you guys and be able to actually physically tell you how good it is in VR. Unfortunately, I don't have that. Like, I mean, if you're buying this for a PC for yourself, £533 is a great amount of money to spend. It's a great budget. It's not too expensive, and it's going to be able to do a lot of stuff. But unfortunately, I can't really just go and spend £533. I already have a beautiful PC that works great. I don't know whether I could really spend that much money. But if you guys really want to see it, and maybe I can work something out with Fierce PC, if you really want to see that, I would love to do that video, so please do let me know if that's what you want to see. This is my recommendation for a budget VR PC, get you into VR gaming. Obviously, you're going to have a headset, you're going to have to buy a headset, but easily for under £1,000, you're getting a VR capable PC and headset. I'd say for under £800, you could probably nail that as well. If any of you guys out there are planning on buying a PC, whether it's a VR or not, and you would like some help to design it or build it, or you have a specific budget that you're trying to get the best value you can for, feel free to message me on Twitter, on Instagram, at Colesy Gaming on both of those, and I will do my best to help you. I've done it with a bunch of people. They'll message me and say, I'm looking for a PC, my budget's this, I would like this specific thing, I would like this processor, or I want to play these games, and I've helped them out and designed something for them. So I'm more than happy to do that. It's fun for me to do. I'm a big nerd and I like designing PCs, I guess. So if you are looking for some help, then I can help you out with that. And of course, you're going to use Colesy 5 to save 5%. That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think to this PC I've designed. Thank you guys, and I will see you next time.